Tell us, Dr. Miller, we've been covering, the sad story about Damar Hamlin and what happened there in Cincinnati
Yeah,
last night. And we were hoping to get some advice and tips, offer some resources to our viewers just about how you should talk to children. The conversations have come up, and it's definitely a difficult one to have.
mhm.
But we were hoping you could, give us some best practices and tips and advice.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think some of the most important things about this are it's an opportunity to teach kids to be heroes. Kids can learn CPR. They can learn to be advocates for their schools to have automatic external defibrillating devices, AEDs, available. When those are present, the incidence of survival in cases like this is much, much higher, and each and every one of them could play a role in being the hero that saves somebody else's life. I think it's also important for the kids to know that this is not a common event. This is a rare event, but it is about 1 in 100,000 young male athletes and 1 in 300,000 young female athletes each year. So it's not like they're going to see it all the time, and most of them will never see it, but it's a good reminder that we need to be prepared and that we can be prepared. So know the signs of this kind of a condition: sudden collapse, shaking that might look like a seizure, unresponsiveness. Take those signs seriously. Activate your CPR mechanisms early. Call 911, jump in, check on the person, and overall make sure there's a plan in place. When we have a plan, I think everybody feels better. And in this kind of a situation, we do know what to do. And so I would encourage kids to think about that. And if they've not been taught CPR, to have them take a class, to organize them at the schools. Through their sports teams. Every kid, certainly any junior high school kid and up, can learn CPR effectively. Even kids younger than that could also definitely play a role. I'd say in addition to that, pre-participation screening exams can be very helpful. Knowing family histories ahead of time. Was there anybody in the family who had an unexplained sudden cardiac death under age 50? That's important to know about. And then also things like eating healthy, nourishing your body as much as you can, staying well hydrated when you're on the field, avoiding drugs or other performance enhancing chemicals that they may come across can increase your risk of cardiac events. And so those things might seem like a good idea to enhance performance, but they actually also enhance risk. So I would look at this as a multi-pronged opportunity to teach kids the value of CPR, the value of early cardiac intervention, and the value of knowing their health history and staying alert and staying healthy.
Doctor, we have chosen, thank you. Those were really good tips. I mean, I would definitely the opportunity to learn CPR because it can save lives. It does save lives. Tell us, as far as limiting content, we've chosen not to show that video
Yeah.
of Hamlin on the ground and doctors working on him. Do you recommend limiting, you know, watching something that traumatic?
I do not. No, and I think that's a really wise choice on the part of the station. I think, the challenge is that you have kids of all ages who may be watching with variable abilities to understand what's happening. And so while an older kid may benefit from kind of seeing that and being able to think it through and looking at how people rushed into action, a younger kid won't interpret that the same way and may not be able to understand it and may just end up feeling extra fearful and anxious and avoidant of those situations. And so I think it's a good choice to be cautious with that.
Cautious, okay. Are there any resources like as far as therapy groups? We're hearing from some people that their kids are, maybe afraid to, to play these type of sports. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think definitely like open conversation is really important with that. I think that it's tough these days, honestly, to find a lot of therapy options. Unfortunately, I mean, we have some wonderful providers at UH. There's some wonderful providers at our related hospitals, but demand is very high, and this is a sudden incident that needs sort of immediate action. So if it's possible at all through school groups or community groups to arrange for discussions, having open discussions where kids can share their fears, where teachers and coaches and maybe bringing in medical professionals to talk to students can help to sort of demystify kind of what happened and explain what happened. And again, to try to, teach the kids how they can be empowered in this type of a situation. This is, again, a rare situation, but one that could happen. And so being prepared is, is a reasonable action to take at this time. Certainly thinking through everything and really trying to help kids express what they saw and what they heard so that we understand, their experience. A lot of times we assume we know what kids saw because we saw it, and so we think they saw it in the same way. But very often kids have their own interpretation of what happened and may have also heard from other kids an interpretation of what this was. And so being sure to lead the dialogue with facts and with open discussion and an open ear is really critical.
Doctor, is it normal to feel anxiety or fear about this?
It is absolutely normal to feel fear and anxiety about this in similar types of events, but again, I would say that this, while the most common cause of death among athletes, fortunately, death among young athletes is not common, right? And so I would actually encourage kids to some degree, anxiety is something we try to get rid of a lot, but anxiety also protects us. So I would encourage them to have a little bit of anxiety about this and to use that anxiety in a productive way to motivate them to action, right? So when we have anxiety, we have to say, what is this alerting me to, and am I prepared for it? And so if I'm not prepared for it, let's get prepared and let's know what to do and let's know how to manage it. I would say that I would like kids to have a little more anxiety even about concussions, for example. When we think about sports-related injury, concussions are much more common. They have tremendous morbidity that goes with them, tremendous negative outcomes in the short and long term. And I think we're not worried enough about those things. So again, I don't think it should keep us from participating. I don't think it should keep us from enjoying the events, but we have to do these types of sports with caution and with some anxiety to keep ourselves safe. So I would say that anxiety is not always our enemy in these situations. Excessive anxiety becomes a problem, but cautious and appropriate anxiety helps to serve us to prepare ourselves appropriately.
Is there anything else you'd like for our viewers to know?
Well, I think thank you for the opportunity, and just there are precautions in sports that are recommended, padding and playing good sportsmanship with good sportsmanship, observing the rules of the game, watching out for one another. And we want to remember that at the end of the day, sports are sports and not something that should preclude our compassion for one another, regardless of what side of the field that we're on. So whenever we're playing, whenever we're participating, take every precaution, play by the rules, and watch out for each other as you play.
Oh my God, that's the perfect soundbite. Thank you.
I
think that's such a perfect way to end this.
Thanks.
I really do. So thank you.
My
We really
pleasure.
appreciate you. Thank you for your thoughts and
Thank you.